Friends, hello, this is Carter, and welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the conversation series where I sit down with another author and we talk about whatever comes to mind. And it's interesting in this case, and I'll get to my guest in just a moment. This was a repeat guest. So then we tend to talk a little bit more about a specific book, or we just go totally off-roading when, I try not to cover the same territory where I covered in the initial episode. Couple things before we get to today's guest. Boy, a lot of things. I got a lot of stuff going on. Just redid my website because every time I have a new book coming out, I redo my website with the wonderful people over at Zuni, who I've been with for 15 years, who do my website. So if you are interested, go check it out because it's beautiful and it showcases my new book, When They Find Me, that will be coming out in November of this year. It is, I'm going to be talking a lot more about it as the episodes go on this year, but I will say it takes place in a remote mountain town in Colorado, 2 days before Christmas in a blizzard, and the entirety of the story covers just 5 hours. And that is my cat meowing, so I'm going to squirt him in the face. Job done. I also have a seminar coming up that I'll be teaching on the visible writer, how to be visible as a writer, how to attach your humanity and your presence and your energy behind your words, how to let people get to know who you are. These are all things that are now essential. If you're an author, you really can't just hide behind your books anymore. People want to know who you are. How can you do that in a way that feels organic and natural and not gross to you? So I will be teaching an online class about that. You can go to my website, unboundwriter.com, and sign up for that. So it'll just be a couple-hour class. I'm also going to be teaching that class at Thriller Fest for Craft Fest if you happen to be there. All right, let's move on. Let's get on to today's guest. So today, as I mentioned, I have a repeat guest, my friend Emily Carpenter. So Emily is a fantastic writer, and I got a sneak peek at her new book, which just came out, A Spell for Saints and Sinners. We spent a long time talking about how to classify books. So we're gonna label hers as Gothic suspense, Southern Gothic suspense. It includes some fantastic witchcraft in there. The main character is a psychic, so there's a lot of good stuff in this book. Like I said, I did get a chance to read it and blurb it, and she's a fantastic writer. And we talked, a lot about the author's journey and getting broken up with by publishers and, finding your voice and, recognizing writers who aren't so much writing anymore. So it was a fairly deep conversation. And I don't know what it is about Emily. To be honest, I don't know her that well. She's been on the show before. We've met a couple times at conferences, but she's just a kind, generous soul, and I connect with her whenever I'm talking to her. I just feel that connection, and it's nice to chat with her because it just feels like we have very engaging and illuminating conversations. Like we're very open with our feelings towards our work, towards the industry, the highs and the lows. And she's just somebody who's very easy to talk to. So it was good to catch up with her and see that she is doing as well as she is. So check out her book, A Spell for Saints and Sinners, and you are going to enjoy this episode. This is my conversation with Emily Carpenter. So I was looking up when we did this last, and it was only 10 months ago. So that was kind of exciting. And I've seen you in the interim. Where did we see each other? Was that Columbus Book Festival, or was it?
Yes, it was Columbus Book Festival. I was a last minute replacement on a panel with you. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, put me in, coach.
Isn't it weird how many books do you have out now?
7.
7. So as you write more and more books, just how much of the community you just start to either know or at least recognize, and you go to these events and you're like, I know at least half the people here, at least by name, or I met them once, and it's just
Right.
it suddenly becomes a smaller world.
Yeah.
Columbus was maybe a little bit different because that was all types of books.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but within kind of the suspense community, Isn't it weird that you just know a
Yes,
bunch of
it
people?
is. And it's like the funny thing is like at this point I feel like the elder statesman because I've been in it long enough to see people like come and go.
Yeah.
And that always makes me sad like when I
Yeah.
have author friends who are either taking an extended break or
Yeah.
no longer writing, which sometimes I think is kind of built into this publishing model we
Yeah.
have.
So what do you think that's about? Like, because I agree. You see people who were kind of really in it and even maybe for multiple books, and then you just like, I haven't heard from that person in a while. Do you think it just kind of breaks people?
Let's just let's just go ahead and crack this open. We can
Yeah,
have
let's
a
crack it
therapy
open.
session. Therapy session. I mean, I think that's part of it. I
Yeah.
think like just to narrow the focus a little bit, I think for women specifically, it comes from some maybe family obligations with
Hmm.
kids start
Sure.
to,
Like any job.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. I also think it has to do with like the changes in the genre
Yeah.
that happen and but I don't know. I think everybody's story is different
Sure.
and yeah, it just sometimes it makes me sad.
Yeah, for
I want
sure.
things to be the same.
I think you're absolutely right. It has a lot to do with everyone's story being different. And I think there is something about because I think all authors go into this with very little understanding of what the industry is. I know, certainly speaking for myself. And so you have certain expectations that are probably ill-founded. And then those expectations, I think, are rarely met, at least initially, because, it's a brutal industry. And for those of us who are fortunate enough to A, get an agent and B, actually get sold, that's no guarantee of any kind of riches or or riches at all. I mean, less than
Or
minimum wage.
even, yeah, or even any kind of stability and security.
Right.
I
Right.
think that's what in my sort of naivete was is that, oh, I'll reach a certain point where I don't have to worry about the next book. And
Right.
that does not exist for not for mid-list writers, and I don't even know, maybe not for the writers that hit it big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. You're totally right. And there are, and I think underlying all of it, and this has taken me years to realize, and fortunately it's what I had been doing, it's maybe subconsciously, has to be this love of the accomplishment, love of writing.
yep,
Because if you're doing it because, hey, the market's now hot, so I'm going to write this kind of book and the market changes, or you're just frustrated because, you're not making any real money doing it.
right,
With a normal job, a corporate job, you started looking for something else, right? Because
right.
your heart's not in it and it's not ticking the other boxes. So for me, I just write and just hope for the best,
Yeah,
while listening to input and certainly trying to
yeah,
get better and all that stuff.
yeah,
But if you
yeah.
try to game the system, it's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. I will just say for me, I'm always kind of anticipating like yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're
One
good.
second.
You're good. A quick break while Emily goes and tends to somebody calling her.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think for me, I'm always kind of this nervous little bunny that's always sort of like to my agent, like, is it time for me to pivot? Do I need to write, YA dystopian? And she's just like, just calm down
Right,
and, just accept that we'll know when we know.
right.
And
And you and I have both gone through more than one publisher.
yeah.
And for me, it was, a couple, one publisher went out of business, the second publisher then didn't want my next book. And then the third publisher I turned down and moved to who I am with now, and I've been with Poison Pen Press for now 8 books, I guess. Um, but it's scary because you like your comment earlier about stability. You like your editor, you like your publishing house, you get into a realm of expectation where you can kind of start even to budget things.
Right.
But that could be ripped out from under you at any point. And you were with, was it Lake Union or was it Thomas and Mercer?
Lake Union.
Lake Union, and now you're with Kensington, I believe. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that's, what was that shift like?
It was hard. I mean, Lake Union always felt like a bit of an odd fit. Like I should have been with Thomas and Mercer, but I think they
Yeah, so
sort
Lake
of,
Union, just for the listeners, maybe a little bit leans a little bit more literary imprint of Amazon Publishing. Thomas and Mercer clearly in that suspense lane.
yeah, the Lake Union book is typically like book club fiction, women's fiction with like light suspense. And I think those of us who wrote like true suspense
Right,
always felt a little bit on the fringes.
right.
Um, and I mean, they were like my last book with them was during the pandemic, October 2020.
Yeah,
It was bleak.
yeah,
And I'm still super proud of the book. Still have people coming up to me saying how much they love the book. But, when I pitched another book to them, they were like, don't think we can do it. Goodbye. And
yeah.
look, that's just the way
That's
the
how it
cookie
is. Yeah,
crumbles. Yeah. And
totally.
but then I went like 4.5 years before I published anywhere else. And that
Yeah,
was not for lack of me trying.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's
but
brutal.
I ended up getting a new agent during that time. I wrote a book that didn't work. So
Yeah,
then
I know
wrote
that
another
feeling.
book. I mean, I just
Yeah,
thought at that point, look, I've had a good run. If this business doesn't want me back, okay.
yeah.
But I'm gonna keep trying.
Well,
So,
and I feel like with you and I see your beautiful book cover of A Spell on Saints and Sinners, which is a fantastic book on your wall back
oh,
there,
thank you.
and I got an early look at it. Um, I'm just guessing because I haven't actually read your Lake Union stuff, but
Yeah,
it's funny just even looking at the covers, the Lake Union stuff is so squarely in that zeitgeist of thriller covers. And then I feel like your covers with Kensington and certainly your work it feels very you, very, you love the Southern Gothic kind of
yeah,
mysticism leaning horror.
yeah,
And I think it just feels more organically you. Would you say
yeah.
that, or am I just guessing?
No, I think you're right. And I think it's taken me, I don't know if you found this in your writing, but it has taken me a while to kind of figure out who I am and what
100%.
I
Yeah.
write and
Right.
where I fit. And that's not to say that, we don't have multitudes within us. We
Right.
can't do other things, but just in terms of where we fit in the market, I think it's just been in these past couple years that I've really been able to lean into that Southern Gothic and with a touch of horror. And I
Yeah.
think Kensington, uh, them being so open to that and
Yeah.
frankly just encouraging me to lean more into that has been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's scary because you write in a space that I think makes you stand out because I think it's just, I mean, the writing's great, but it's just a different, more, in my opinion, like it's not a cookie cutter thriller at all. But on the other hand, that can be kind of scary too, because how often do we hear like, we love it, but we just don't know how we would market it.
Right.
You've got people who like psychics and how did you research that, by the way? Your main character, like what kind of path did you go down for that?
Well, I had to do a ton of research for her because she is a psychic, but she also is a witch. She practices a form of witchcraft that I kind of concocted on my own. But the place I started was because I am not a witch.
Or psychic?
Yeah, or a psychic. I do feel like I have some psychic abilities.
So you were
Some,
able to kind of tap into that to, that's great. Yeah.
I think I have like super strong intuition.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and there have been sometimes some brushes with stuff like that and kind of the other side. But yeah, I just kind of I remember telling my editor, this is I'm not doing practical magic. I
Mhm.
love it, but like this is like real. This
Yeah.
is somebody who really practices witchcraft. So I started with a memoir by Diana Helmuth called The Witching Year.
Hmm.
And it's a great book, very charming. And it is about a woman that takes a whole year to kind of learn the world of witchcraft and to kind of explore all the different types and to try to
Hmm.
like really take it seriously for a year and see what she thinks. And so that really worked for me because I could walk with her through the
Right.
discovery process. And then I was studying like all these like really like witchcraft reference books.
Hmm.
And I realized pretty quickly that it was a complex practice and that there were lots of different types of practices and there were a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people and that it's a little bit the Wild West.
Mhm.
And which on one hand gave me a lot of freedom to kind of
Right.
make up my character, her particular brand of witchcraft, which is kind of a light-based sympathy magic type practice. And then on the psychic side, I really kind of stuck with like palm reading, aura reading, because tarot cards are super, like, they're also a vast field of expertise.
Right.
And
And that's
I was
very
like,
accessible to the reader too, because readers are going to know tarot readings and
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I stayed away from the tarot because I just felt like I was not educated enough with that.
hmm.
So I stuck more to she does like palm readings or readings, but then the book really delves into the spells and the rituals she
Mhm.
ends up doing once she's like pulled into this wealthy family's orbit. They enlist her to do these spells for them.
That's cool. I mean, and I'm sure your whatever preconceived notions you had about witchcraft were just completely obliterated through your
Oh, yeah.
research.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at one point, so I've also, in my own religious and spiritual journey, I have been to a lot of different churches and I have explored all different kinds of religion and
Hmm.
definitely like Western Christianity. I've been to all the churches. And what I realized while I was researching the witchcraft, I was like, I'm seeing a Venn diagram here,
Yeah, you're seeing a little bit of your own journey.
a little overlap
Yeah.
of my own journey, but also how some of the particular Christian branches and denominations can get very complex
Yeah.
and have like certain steps to follow and almost feel very ritualized. And
Hmm.
it's real interesting to see the overlap of like, oh, well, you're not praying this prayer right. That's why God didn't answer you. And it's
Mhm.
very similar to like, you didn't do the spell right, or your will wasn't in the energy wasn't in the right place.
Right.
And
Well, that's like manifestation too. Like,
yeah,
the
yeah,
idea of, you can have these incantations, but unless you have the energy to match it in terms of true belief, then they're just
right.
words.
So there's always like, it's so complex and there's always a way to fail
Yeah. Yeah.
at it. Yeah.
Where do you think your own kind of religious quest and curiosity very, obviously the in the US, I think the stereotype is, or the most common thing is, you are kind of what you grew up with, this because
Yeah.
that's all you ever known. And it's curious for me because my son, I'm not a very religious person, and my son kind of found it on his own, which I think is beautiful because it's like you're
Yeah.
old enough to be curious and to just, want to explore things on your own. It wasn't force fed to you. Sounds like you had your own kind of exploration where maybe rooted in Christianity, but obviously there's a million
Yeah.
different churches you can try.
Yeah. I'm very much a Virgo in this way. Like I want to do it right and I want to find the right religion.
Right, right. Got
At
to
the
find the
end,
right God.
like at the end of the world, I want to be like, I'm in the
Yeah,
right religion.
right.
I chose right. But I mean, so my Virgo-ness does not sit well with we will never know why. We can never answer all the questions. There
Oh.
is no right way. So like but plus I'm just very curious. Like I was raised very strict Presbyterian PCA, which is a branch of the Presbyterian Church that is extremely like Calvinistic and sort of
Mm-hmm.
predestination and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I mean, I had questions from day one, and but I
Hmm.
followed it. I'm also a follower and a people pleaser. So, I don't know. It's been really interesting. I kind of, what I loved about the practice of witchcraft is that it really is, I kind of went into it thinking maybe this is just about like getting what I want out of life. And I think that is some of it, but so are other religions. We all want, a good life and a
Right.
fulfilled life. What I found in witchcraft is that there is a real sort of openness and consciousness of aligning yourself with the universe, like with what is going on and where the universe is moving and a higher purpose. And I call
Mhm.
it it's called like the one cosmic will.
Hmm.
And I found that really beautiful and really like a unifying force. And so I and not that far off from Christianity. Like if you
Right. Well,
substitute
yeah,
the one cosmic will for God's will, and if it's a loving God, it's all good.
right. You can distill a lot of these different belief systems to the to a
Yeah.
few simple common denominators
Yes.
of a
Yes.
need for understanding what's next and, love and a few, and it all boils down to just a
Yeah.
few things. And then they
And
just branch
comfort.
out into and comfort. Right. Right.
Comfort in this terrifying world we live in.
Right.
Yeah, it's all very similar. So I was raised very much like, oh, stay away from the, witchcraft and the occult and all that. And but what I found was that yes, this Wiccan practice is like seeking the same things.
Right. My understanding is it's very nature adjacent.
It
And
is.
you think of
Yeah.
like a lot of like, and like indigenous belief systems that are all really
Yeah.
rooted in nature and the earth and
Yes.
animals. And, it all just kind of, it's funny how it just all kind of boils down to basic
Yes.
stuff and then religions just make it overly complicated, I think.
Even Wiccan makes it overly complicated, I think. At one
Interesting.
point I was reading this and I was like, this is more complicated than the strictest form of Christianity I was in.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
but that was only like one book, one
Right, right,
one guy
right,
saying like you need to do all these things before you do a ritual. And I was like,
right.
I don't have the, wavelength for this. Yeah.
And so you clearly went down this path in this research, and I think one of the scary things, and yeah, I don't do a lot of research, so I'm kind of talking out of my ass. But what I've evidenced is like, I know a lot of people who just they write only so they're allowed to research. They just love the research, and what can become problematic is that you use too much of that, or you get so excited yourself, you start to distance yourself from the audience. Do you ever and I'm just thinking particularly when we talk about things like witchcraft in a thriller, in I would say more of a literary thriller, um, my own agent would be like, no woo woo stuff. That's how she would put it, right?
Right.
And you're like, no, but you have to understand this is. Do you
Yeah.
have that kind of back and forth with Kensington at all about like, let's make this more grounded, or just do whatever you want to do?
Um, they really gave me a lot of freedom. And I think within that, when you do say horror, you do that part of an
That
element
opens
of
it
that
up.
is
Yeah.
supernatural.
Yeah.
Um, and I will say in my book specifically, there's frequently a supernatural element that could be, and that's very gothic too,
Yeah.
that concept of is it a ghost or is it the guy, I mean, it's Scooby-Doo, old Mr. McGillicuddy who
Right.
doesn't want you to,
Right.
tear down the mat, whatever. So there is always that element in Gothic fiction and in my books of is it real? Is it not real? What's happening? Is it, an unreliable narrator having psychosis, or is it truly something supernatural? So they gave me a lot of freedom with that. And like I said, I did this, I mean, part of the plot of this book is this young woman who truly believes in her form of witchcraft is doing spells that have results, but who is accomplishing, did the results come because of her spells, or is somebody helping along the
Right.
spells?
I see. I see.
Yeah. And so
What
that is part of the narrative.
is this book kind of being marketed as horror?
Um, I can't quite figure out.
I
Sometimes
mean, horror
this
is
is
so fluid. Like I don't
horror is so fluid. And I will say, like, a hardcore horror reader is going to be truly,
horrified.
like,
Like that it's not
unimpressed.
horror.
Like, I think, like, somebody who's, like, true hardcore horror is going to be like, no, 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 this is not. I would say this is horror adjacent.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
mashup.
I
They're
would
doing mashups these days,
yeah,
Carter.
I would agree with that. And it's also it's funny because I'm at a book festival on Saturday, kind of locally, and I'm on a horror panel. And I'm like, okay. And I know the other two writers, and I wouldn't classify their work as horror either. Um, and I feel like the word horror in genre fiction carries a much heavier weight than the word thriller, for example. And maybe I'm
Agree.
just biased on that.
No, no, you're
But
right.
I couldn't define it because when we look at thrillers, you have everything from what I would write, which would be more of a domestic slash psychological thriller, to, corporate finance thriller, spy thriller, a million different types. So maybe horror, I guess horror is the same way, but I
Well,
wouldn't know
I
how to
would
define
say
it.
Yeah, I would say thriller is like that because I don't call my books thrillers
Yeah.
because they start slow. I call them suspense
Yeah,
because
I agree with that. I mean,
they
yours is definitely
start,
gothic suspense.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
with a slow burn, and it's more like that rising dread rather than, you're dropping in with a dead body and you're off and running.
Right.
Yeah,
I've heard horror described as being kind of like there's more of a sense of hopelessness, which
yeah,
I thought it was kind of a good way of describing it because it's just like because you think of like how many thrillers are serial killer thrillers, which is obviously
right.
horrifying. But if there's hope at the end, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And all this is how is the publisher going to market this to the bookstores, kind of a thing. So it
Yeah,
usually goes beyond our input because I've
yeah,
read some dark thrillers where
yes,
you're just like there's parts of this I can't get through because it's really graphic brutal violence but
yeah.
it's not horror
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it is strange, and I don't know that the publishers have it figured out either.
yeah, they kind of see, oh, this one really, and then like, tell me what you did. My last book kind of took off. It was my breakout. And now it's funny how now I'm starting to see from different sides of my publisher, okay, how do we package you now in this
Yes.
realm because this one really worked,
Yeah.
including like, well, we like titles that kind of have this kind of beat to them
Right.
and these kinds of words. And I don't argue with any of it, because it's like this is their job. This is they, when they find something that works. And of course, if something works, that doesn't mean it's going to work in perpetuity. You're hoping that it
Right.
can work for at least one more book.
Yeah, but it is that impulse is give us more of the same but totally different,
Right, right, right.
which
Yeah.
is just really hard to accomplish.
It is, especially when you're writing standalones.
Yeah.
I've never written a series before, and when you have, and it's funny, you talk to people who write highly successful series, and one side of you says, how can all this crazy stuff keep happening to the same person? The other side, you're like, that's kind of really nice to have. Like, I know who my person is. I
Yeah.
know their universe, and
Yeah.
I could just have to think of another story with it, and that's what readers want because you have that baked in audience, and
Yeah.
there's got to be a sense of comfort with it.
Yes.
I just wouldn't.
Yes. No,
I've
I
never had a
wouldn't know
character where I'm
either.
like, I have to have this continue.
Yeah, I don't know what that's like either. And I have the same like looking on the other side of that fence and seeing that expanse of green grass and saying, "Oh, that would be so
I
nice
know.
to
I know.
have it like established." But again, it's that thing of safety
Yeah.
that I keep longing for that just I don't I think we're in a post safety era in the
Yeah.
publishing industry and so we just
Oh,
keep coming up with new stuff.
it's what I have to turn in August. I for publication next year. I finished it, so I'm kind of reviewing it now before I give it to my agent. And I'm writing this thing, and I'm not outlining, so I don't know where it's going. But around 80% and I kind of see the ending, and the way that it ends, I'm like, there's a whole other book about what happens next.
Oh,
And I can't, like, if I wanted to, but I can't try to cram that into an ending
right,
because it's just too
right.
much. But I don't want to leave the ending so open that it necessitates the next, because my agent, my editor might be like, we don't want.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I'm like, so now I'm like just left like I don't have no idea if this ending is satisfying at all or not, because I just feel like it's such an open door to a next book, that I don't even know if I want to write a next book, even if they said,
Right.
but I just didn't know how to
Yeah.
end it otherwise. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens.
I kind of do both. I like to wrap the story up, but then also leave one little door open of possibility that there's a just in case, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I think I love that. I love a bit of a vague ending, and
Yeah.
I would say the preponderance of my readers don't like that.
Yes.
They want to know like what happened. I had one book, and spoiler alert, where the main character is on a plane that feels like it's about to crash, and you just don't know. Um, and I love that because in my
I
mind,
love it too.
I'm like,
I love
she's
it too.
fine. And she's found peace in this moment of horror. She's found peace and she's found hope. And that's her arc to me. That's it's to me, it's sublime. But to the reader's like, God damn it.
Does the plane
That book
land the
didn't do very
plane,
well, by the
Carter?
way.
See, but I would have loved that. But like, I love strange, open-ended stuff. I think yeah, that's always the battle, isn't it? To like, I mean, the truth is not to be too high-minded. I think we're artists
Yeah,
and, I like to think of myself that way. And I like to think that I'm writing a book that is art and
yeah,
I'm creating art. And but I also want to create art that people can connect to.
Right.
And I do have like weird tastes. Like sometimes the TV shows that I love, nobody else loves them.
Right.
Or the books everyone loves, they don't connect with me. And
Yeah.
so I realized that I'm kind of a little weirdo
Yeah.
out here so I have to keep that in mind. Like if the goal is, I'd love a lot of people to read my book and love my book. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I have to make some compromises,
Yeah.
but they don't feel like I don't feel like I'm
Right.
compromising my
No, I
art.
agree. I mean, I think that's the perpetual struggle between your own instincts and your own voice and what is going to resonate with
Yeah.
the general readership.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a constant learning experience. And I think you're right. Like when you say, I make compromises, but they don't feel like that big of a deal, that's because they're adjacent to your own instincts. Like my
Yeah.
editor will tell me stuff that is a lot of work, but it all resonates with me.
Yeah.
Either I can identify how this is going to make the book more commercially viable,
Yeah.
or it's just a great idea that I wish I would have thought of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, I think the people that either try to write too much to the market or are unwilling to listen to those trusted voices, that's where you stop growing. And
Yes. Agreed.
and those are those people who were like, what happened to that person?
Yeah.
Because things
Yeah.
change.
And then I think some people just have kind of an innate sense of what the mass public wants to read.
Yeah.
And I would love to get inside those people's head
Yeah.
because like I always miss it
Yeah. Well, it's,
somehow.
yeah.
Like
And totally.
no,
And I don't really read
yeah.
fiction, so I don't have that, I read
Oh, do
mostly
you not?
I mostly read, unless I'm blurbing, I'm almost always reading nonfiction, but
Oh
I
wow.
watch a lot of TV shows. I
Right.
watch a lot
Yeah,
of
I
limited
do too.
series. And I love to kind of deconstruct, like, do you see, what's so difficult is, a TV show or film can get away with so much
Yes.
visually that it would take pages, a single camera shot
Oh
can
yes.
be so revelatory and if it's done well. But I love to kind of just deconstruct scenes. I'm like, why do I love this person in this scene? What are they? Is it the actor, or is it the dialogue, or is it the way it's shot? And how do I translate that into my own writing? And you just hope subconsciously you just kind of learn from those things. But
I'm
I
fascinated with that.
are
Yeah.
you, but you are a big fiction reader?
I don't read as much as I would like.
Right.
And I'm going through kind of a weird dry spell right now. I'm
Huh.
just it's not happening. But I will say I do like when I feel like I've just read so much fiction and of course I'm watching TV and movies, which I love as much as I love books, but nonfiction is a great palate cleanser and I really, really enjoy like a good narrative nonfiction, yeah,
Yeah,
book.
no, totally. And
Yeah,
even with it's funny, even with shows, so I'm watching this show Task right now, which is great, but when I read about it on the surface, it feels very, I've seen this 1,000 times, a task
right,
force, trying
right.
to investigate drugs and stuff like that. And then I'm watching it, I'm like, it's so well done, but you
Yes.
have to go through it to have to know that. And that's like a book too. Like you read the back cover and you want it to be different enough to be compelling. But you really wanted the voice to sing. And there's such a voice in this show, Task, that has surprised me and has elevated it above what I still consider to be a fairly generic plot. But
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
worthy watching because it's highly emotional. And then they'll have a certain scene that another similar show wouldn't have, where more character development kind of a thing. But it's hard to find those things. You always feel like you have to be different, and I think that's where you stand out. Is like, even just again the cover. It's like, this is a different type of book. This is. I don't know. I'm a little obsessed with your covers because I'm just like
Oh, thank you.
it's so like telling about, like, I know exactly, I know the mood of
Yeah,
this book.
yeah.
And sometimes
I
that's the only chance you have to capture somebody is they're scrolling and they're like, I get it.
Oh, I mean, covers are everything. And it's like I'm the first to say that like my ideas are not always the ideas they take or the
Right.
best idea, but I agree with you. I've been really happy with the covers they've given me. And yeah, I think it does definitely telegraph like this is what you're getting, this Southern Gothic suspense. Like you're gonna have a fun ride.
Yeah. So do you have I'm guessing you do. I know this book just came out,
Yeah.
but I assume you've got another one in the pipeline with Kensington.
Yes, I've got one coming out next year with them, which is I'm really excited
Is
about
it
it.
done?
Yes,
Oh
I
wow.
wrote that one very quickly for several reasons. When I came up with the idea, I was like I couldn't sleep. I was so
Oh
excited
wow.
about it. It's actually a retelling of Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah, which was another reason it was a little bit faster
Yeah.
process writing it because thank you, Daphne. She laid out an incredible plot that I mostly followed. But it's set in the Americana roots music scene of Northwest Alabama, Muscle
Hmm.
Shoals, all that kind of like old um where they Fame Studios where they recorded Aretha Franklin and the Rolling Stones, and
Sure. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
whole place up there by the Tennessee River is just like, speaking of supernatural, there's some kind of supernatural portal for like musical genius up there. So yeah, it's a
Mm, mm.
contemporary story. It's about a young woman who seeks out a iconoclastic music producer to help her produce her debut album.
That's great. And so that's next year.
Yeah, that's next year. So
Wow. So you got them
yeah,
all lined up after that 4 year dry spell. You got them all lined up.
I mean, I'm writing just as fast as my little fingers will go.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, you know what comes next. This is the storytelling part of the show. And I think
Oh yeah.
last time I was looking back at the show notes, we did a sentence from Gone Girl, but I've got three books here, and you're going to choose one of them. We're going to choose a sentence, and that's going to be the first sentence in like a 2 minute long short story. We'll just alternate sentences until it gets horrible, and then I'll call it. But your books to choose from, I have R.G. Belsky's Broadcast Blues,
Okay.
B.J. Magnani's Will Always Have Poison, and Tasha Alexander's Death by Misadventure. I think these were all books sent to me as part of a contest I was
I
judging.
love it. I love
So
it. Let's do
choose
the
one of
poison.
those.
I like the poison one, caught my
Will
eye.
always have poison.
Yes.
So give me, and my cat just walked in, so he might start howling. We'll see.
Welcome,
That might
Kitty.
add to it. Give me a page between 1 and 270.
103.
103. All right, I'm going to quickly scan page 103, and then you can do whatever you want with a sentence that I will find. Um, this is a lot of weird dialogue on this page. Uh,
Get hard.
so we're going to make this tough. We're going to make this a bit of a challenge.
Oh no.
This is just a piece of dialogue. You don't need to know who's in the scene. It's just one person saying this. Can you please tell us about the food sources for humpback whales and orcas? Make it good. Pressure's on.
Okay. Okay, but can you repeat it?
Yes. Can you please tell us about the food sources for humpback whales and orcas?
He asked the boat captain as they maneuvered out of the swamp.
I looked over at my father, who would only ask questions all the time, irritated. But then I shifted my glance to the captain himself, who strangely didn't even answer the question. And I didn't know if he could hear my father or if he was deep in thought on something else.
My father stood, rocking the boat slightly, menacingly, pointing his finger at the captain, and said, I know what you're up to.
I had no idea what my father was talking about. I thought maybe he thought we were getting scammed, and my face became flush with anxiety. But still, the captain didn't even turn. He tended to his boat as we drew out of the swamp and into the tributary, which would carry us into the ocean.
My father turned to me and said with a smile, Are you ready, son?
I didn't even have time to answer before my father reached over and cinched my life preserver tighter around my body. And then he grabbed his own and put it over his head and secured it as well. He grabbed my hand and gave me a squeeze. We can call it there.
Oh my gosh, I
I don't
love
know
it.
where
I'm
that's going.
in. I feel like the boat is going to be flipping at some
Something's
point.
going to happen. Yes. So, yeah. I mean, come on. We turned
I
a pretty
mean,
academic sentence into something mildly
into
suspenseful.
action. Yeah, into some narrative action. We are indeed commercial writers.
We are. Emily, great to see your face. All right. Am I going to see you at Thriller Fest in New York?
I hope so.
Okay, I will be there as well.
Great.
Congratulations on the release, and always great talking to you.
Thank you. Same. Thanks for having me on, Carter.
Talk again soon. Bye,
All right.
Emily.
Bye.
So that is it. That is my conversation with Emily Carpenter. And we did a good little storytelling there, starting with a very bizarre sentence. I normally wouldn't choose a bizarre sentence, but it kind of worked for me. And it worked for the story. So I don't know. Would I read that story? Maybe. I'd give it a couple pages. As a reminder, her new book is out, A Spell for Saints and Sinners. You can read about her book and everything about Emily at her website, which is emilycarpenterauthor.com. And you can pop on over to carterwilson.com to check out my books, my new design website, my new book coming out when they find me. And if you're interested in any kind of writing coaching or any of my courses that I teach on live seminars or even upcoming retreats, you can find all of that at unboundwriter.com. That is it. That is it for this episode of Making It Up. Thanks for consuming this, either watching it on YouTube or downloading the podcast. I appreciate it. Another one will be out just next week, as always. And thank you and take care.